Aren't we cheery?
Now, here's the thing.
Ian, it's a lovely letter.
Yes. Here's the thing. We're not experts.
Oh, every week you let me down on that one.
So
when
if you
will
need
I ever be an expert?
do seek professional help. Don't go anywhere. Your Grill Graham feedback is on the way. But now it's my guest of the week. One of the most successful producers in the music industry. He's worked with Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Paul McCartney, Grace Jones, Cher, Seal. He is Trevor Horn. You bring us a new album. Trevor Horn reimagines the 80s. And we've been playing tracks off the album. And we really enjoy it here. And I wondered, so the 80s, obviously, you are very much associated with the 80s. But these tracks, so what's the story? Did you originally produce any of these, or did you originally produce some of them?
Good question. I actually originally produced Slave to the Rhythm and Owner of a Lonely Heart that are on there.
Yep.
But those are the only two. Everything else I didn't produce. It's just a song that I chose.
And did you choose them because they were the songs that got away? You kind of thought, oh, I wish I'd had a go at that back in the day.
No, I chose of the lyrics. You know, if you're going to work on something hard, the lyrics have got to be good, and I really like, the lyrics like Different for Girls. It's a great lyric. In fact, also the lyric for Girls on Film, when you actually listen to it, because one has a tendency, the old records, you've heard them so often.
Yeah.
And then when somebody else sings them, suddenly it's like you hear the lyric for the first time. It's actually a cool lyric on Girls on Film.
And you perform on two of the tracks, but then how did you pick the other people? I mean, some of the people, like Seal, you've worked with a lot, but some of the other people, had you worked with them before? How did you approach them?
When we did the track first in every case, and we had a track, and it was like, who could sing this? Who could we figure out to do this? When we got the first, when I did the first demo arrangement of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Julian Hinton is the arranger. We put our heads together, and Robbie was the first person we came up, because somebody said we need an alpha male, somebody, strong, and Robbie, obviously. Yeah. And Robbie was up for it, because he heard the intro and he loved it. So we did it like that. And then, for instance, Steve Hogarth is a singer in Marillion. I know that might be a bit obscure for some people, but he's actually a brilliant singer. And he said to me, why don't you do Ashes to Ashes and I'll sing it, right? So, fine. So we did Ashes to Ashes and he sung it. And then Seal heard it and said, oh, I want to sing that, right? So then we had to find Guy Garvey said, why don't you do Different for Girls? Because I talked to him about it, even though he's not on the record. I'm a very big fan of his.
Yeah.
So it kind of went round like that,
And then there's some beautiful voices on Rumour's on here, and Matt Cardle does The Power of Love. And it's interesting you say that you laid the track down first. So the Sarn Orchestra, obviously named for your famous studio.
Yes.
Where is the studio now? What is there now?
Well, I can tell you exactly what's there. 9 apartments, an office building, and 4 townhouses where Sam used to be. They're only just finished, but Sam has moved onto Ladbroke Grove.
Oh, okay, so it still exists as a physical place.
As a physical, it's called the Sam Music Village.
Oh, wow. I didn't know. Oh. And the orchestra, is the orchestra a real thing, or is it just you went, oi... You with the violin.
If you think about it, what is an orchestra or a big band really? If you hired the Tommy Dorsey band now, and you could if you wanted, it's all of the arrangements. That's what makes. So the Psalm Orchestra is really the arrangements and the best players that we can get at any given time.
And then a lot of people are asking, because it seems to beg for it, concert versions. Are you going to performing these live?
Well, yeah, obviously with a lot of people it can be a bit expensive to take it out live. But we've already done one show at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and we actually got a good 4 out of 5 stars, which is not bad going these days. And we're going to do some shows in the summer, July and August. Yeah. Fantastic.
And that thing of choosing the vocalist after you've done the thing, when you produced just a regular group and stuff, how did you do it then? Or was it different with different people, different bands, different artists?
Well, the job of being a producer changes so much depending on the artist. Some people, like Robbie, they're a solo singer and they let you hire all the musicians and do the arranging. A group is completely different. You have to try and find out what's in their heads and get it, like Belle and Sebastian. So it varies so much, But it's always the same thing, I'm sure, as in your business. I mean, when you have your show where you talk to people, you've got to try and get things out of them, right? You've got to get the show to go.
Yes.
It's the same being a producer. You know, you've got to keep people on plan. You know?
You say that, Trevor, but you contributed so much. You put things on top, you know.
Yes, I did, yeah.
There was an awful lot of that going on.
Yeah.
You know, a producer here was talking about Pet Shop Boys,
yeah,
and how they would hand you a song and then you would come back with sort of 9-minute epic.
Yes. And funny enough, a taxi driver told me a very funny story yesterday. He said, "Haven't I heard your name?" And I said, "Maybe." He said, "Your music, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, now I know who you are. He said, "I remember listening to that Frankie Goes to Hollywood years ago." And I said, "They're great." And my mate said, "No, they're rubbish. It's that Tony Horn." Experimenting. So, crack me up.
But it is interesting, I was saying this earlier, that we know who you are. You know, most records, we don't know who produced those records. And they could be brilliant, they could be award-winning, they could be, you know, million-selling. But how did we end up knowing who you are? That's a very
good question. I could tell you almost exactly how it happened, right? Because I watched it when ABC were on Top of the Pops for the first time playing Poison Arrow.
Love it.
When they said, "This is a new single from ABC, produced by Trevor Horn." And I practically fell out of my chair because they didn't credit a single other producer in the show. And I had a feeling then that I'll have to watch out for this because maybe the artists won't like it.
And did they?
Not always.
But I suppose they wanted the magic dust. They wanted the hit,
Yeah.
but maybe they didn't want to share the limelight.
No, but if you think about it, if you look back, I didn't do an interview till about 1988 or something, you know. I never talked much back then.
But I would hear or read, I would see produced by Trevor Horn, and I think I'm going to like this.
Yeah.
Which,
good.
you know, which is, that's a big compliment.
Oh, thank you.
You know, because I don't know much, but I did know your name. It interesting, some of the people you've worked with, and I wondered how much do you work with them? With someone like Grace Jones, who's kind of a law unto herself, do you just let her do a vocal and then you go, "Thank you, Miss Jones," and then you go away and do everything else to it and do, you know?
Sort of. Grace is a really good laugh, you know. I mean, if you catch her in a good mood and she's into it, she's very funny. So on Slave to the Rhythm, I had to sort of have Bruce Woolley standing about 3 feet away. He's the writer. And she said, I remember I played the track and she said, "Oh, I feel the mood. It's been a long day. I'm tired." And she sat in a chair and we got the mic down to her. And she said, let's go. And the music started up and Bruce went, "Work all day." She, "Work all day. As men who know. As men who know." So that's how we did that.
Wow.
one. And if you actually solo up a vocal track, you can hear Bruce somewhere in the background saying the next line.
And do you miss that time when you could put together, I mean, this in a way is a concept album, but they're all
Yes.
kind of separate tracks, but that idea of putting together an album that was almost a complete story, had an arc?
Yeah, well, because those are the albums that I always loved the most. You know, Steely Dan, Deacon Blue, you know, Cocteau Twins, albums that sort of had a feeling of unity. The songs weren't all the same, but they felt like they were all about the same kind of subject.
Do you think that'll come back? Do you think it is coming back?
Well, I think it'll come back if somebody does a good one, basically.
Yeah.
That's what always happens in the music business.
And at home, do you listen to vinyl still, or are you lost to Spotify and things?
No, I don't listen to. I like CDs. I think CDs sound great.
Still the CDs?
Yeah, CDs are fine.
See, I don't have a CD player in my house anymore.
Really?
No.
Well, it's still
because I got the CD I had to sit in my car.
Yeah.
I had to sit in my car to listen to it.
But a CD's going to still be the closest to the master tape.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, record labels, sometimes they can't find the old master tapes, so they're remastering records from a CD. It's amazing, really.
Well, you've heard of him. Okay, note to self, must buy CD player on way home. That's what I must do. We'll have more from Trevor after a song from the album Trevor Horn Reimagines the 80s, which is out now. And I believe, is this the next single?
I'm looking, yes.
Yes, it is. So this is Seal performing Ashes to Ashes. And you said just then, so this was Seal just went, "All of that."
Yeah.
Okay, here it is.
Do you remember? I've
There it is, Seal, performing Ashes to Ashes as featured on the Trevor Horner Imagines the 80s album, which is out now. And you do kind of think that is pretty fearless of you and Seal to kind of mess with that. It's not like anyone was thinking, this could be better. I mean, people like Ashes to Ashes. Were you scared? Were you nervous?
I was scared of all of them a bit, but I thought if I don't do them in the same way, right, then it should be all right. Seal doesn't sound remotely like David Bowie, and he's not even trying to impersonate him in any kind of way. If the lyric's good, the song should stand up, and the lyric on that song is particularly brilliant. Even though what it's about might not be necessarily for daytime listening.
But also it's that thing that no one's saying, you must never listen to the David Bowie version again. This is just adding, it's a compliment.
Yeah, it's a different way of doing the song, yeah.
Right, people have been in touch with questions. The bass player in my first band was Trevor's brother, Ken. Yeah, there you
Could
go.
be true.
I remember Trevor turning up in a white furry bomber jacket and big white framed glasses and lending Ken his beautiful white Rickenbacker bass for our first ever gig in 73-74. As a bassist myself, I just wanted to say thanks to Trevor for his magical contribution to music and audio production. That's from Mike in Great Eastern.
That was my brother Ken. He's a producer now. He just produced the next series of Line of Duty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I want to know, do you still have the bomber jacket?
I've got pictures of it.
It's on ice somewhere. I loved your work with ES as a producer and writer, and also, albeit briefly, as a vocalist. Is there any chance you might produce and co-wrote a new work with them, thereby working yet again with your brilliant Buggles counterpart, Jeff Downes? Fly From Here, which you did so much on, was one of their very best albums. That's Paul in Tynemouth.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, actually, Jeffrey and I are meeting up next month because in autumn it's 40 years since Video Killed the Radio Star came out. So we thought we might see if we could do a new Buggles song,
Do it. Actually, the next one is from Andy Halliwell in Blackpool. How did it feel to have your music video Kill the Radio Star, played as the very first music video on MTV? And did it help introduce new fans to your music?
I wasn't aware that it was going to happen, and I only found out about it afterwards because I was actually touring. I was in America with Yes, and people started to come up to me and say, "Why don't you play Video Kill the Radio Star?" And I was like, "Where have you seen that?" And they said, "Oh, it's been on MTV." And then somebody told me. It's like one of those things I didn't realise. But of course, it's so obviously the perfect song for MTV. It couldn't have been more perfect.
It's like a mission statement.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did you feel about taking on the challenge of helping to produce Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells 2? And how aware were you of people's expectations? What was the pressure like? Lawrence in Burton-upon-Trent.
Well, I always liked Mike's stuff. I loved Incantations. He's Mike's really unique. He's like a English composer. There's no one quite like him. Tubular Bells 2 wasn't an easy record to make, but I think it was the first 2 record anybody ever did, and I was quite interested in doing the first 2 record, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've tried not to do any since then, even though I think it was a good record. When you work with somebody who plays everything themselves, it's an interesting job for a producer because it's not like you've got a bunch of musicians. One guy, and he plays everything. So I spent most of my time saying to Mike, don't get angry with your guitar, because Mike would play a bit, and then he'd go like this. I'd say, Mike, love your guitar. Look how much it's done for you in your life, Oh, all right. So that was my main job. But he's absolutely brilliant.
But also, because he's doing everything, as a producer, when do you know that it's all working? And presumably quite late in the process.
Well, quite late in the process. And Mike, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Mike actually did one thing to me that nobody else has ever done, right? Which is overnight he wiped a 10-minute section that we'd been working on for like 2 weeks. And when I came in the next morning, they said, Mike says, don't go until he talks to you, He'd been up all night and he'd just completely rewritten one part. And that was in the days when you wiped stuff and it was gone. That was a bit of a shock. But he's a lovely guy.
I think time has mellowed your reaction. That was a bit of a shock. Miranda in Solihull, ZTT Records is 35 years old this year. What did it stand for, and what did you mean when you said running an unsuccessful label would be easier?
Did I say that?
Apparently, yeah.
ZTT was were the initials of a futurist pamphlet that came out in the 20s. This is Paul Morley came up with all of this, not me. It was zang tum tum. Those were noises like zang tum tum. They were sort of making noises. The reason I said it would be easier to be unsuccessful is because when you start a new record label and you suddenly have 3 successful artists, I couldn't be. I'll write a book. Read the book.
Well, write the book.
Okay.
If you write the book, I'll read the book.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a great interview answer.
No, you're right.
I'm going to write a book.
No, it can get very complicated.
Yeah,
that's the problem, and there are a lot of pressures. A lot of pressures.
Lauren McCall used to do that in interviews. When you ask her a question, she'd go, "Read the book." She had written the book, so she was like, "I can't be bothered telling you that again. It's in the book."
God, I'd love to have met her.
She was amazing. You've made loads of great tracks with Pet Shop Boys. Which song are you most proud of, and who is your favourite Pet Shop Boy? Ruth from Liverpool.
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. How could I possibly answer that?
Which song are you most proud of? You can do that one.
That one's relatively easy. Left to My Own Devices. I always thought that came out really well, and they're both my favourites. Chris is quite different when you're working with him. He's very funny, but they're great. I used to look forward to going to the studio to be with them. Because I would work away and they would sit at the back reading and make comments.
And when did you stop working together?
Oh, well, we did that whole album, Fundamental, I think it was called, not long ago. We're actually working together next month.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I just talked to Neil yesterday because I'm doing a charity concert for the Roundhouse, because I help the Roundhouse, and they're going to be top of the bill.
Wow. When's that happening? Do you know?
That's on March the 14th.
Well, that's soon.
I think that's the date.
We're looking around. Nobody knows.
Terrible with dates.
Google it. You'll find out.
Yeah.
And very quickly, you produced so many iconic albums. Which is your favourite, and which do you think was overlooked at the time? Henry from Lewisham.
My favourite, I guess it would. I hate answering this question because I feel bad for everybody else if I say it. But I have to. Seal, I've made too many records with Seal. The first 2 Seal albums are really good, but then so is 90125. I put loads of effort into everything I do, so they're all like children, and I can't say one of them is.
And right now, this is your favourite. It's the newest. This is the newest baby.
Favourite, yeah.
The newest baby. Trevor Horn reimagines the 80s. It's out now. Thanks so much for coming in to see us.
Thanks for having me.
Graham Norton.
Let's find out